The Super League is back. Yes, just under 2 years since the last iteration was announced in April 2021 and collapsed within 2 days, the idea of a European Super League is back on the table. On the 9th of February 2023, A22 Sports Management, a company created to promote a revamped European Super League, announced its proposals, with Chief Executive Bernd Reinhart promising an open competition with no permanent members based on sporting performance, with the 2021 version receiving the majority of backlash for failing to guarantee this. But why would the clubs behind the 2021 attempt, most notably Real Madrid, Barcelona and Juventus, refusing to accept defeat, and are their restructured plans more likely to succeed? Today on FD Explained, we put the revamped European Super League under the microscope and ask, will it actually work? At the heart of the European Super League are two main ambitions: to close the ever-increasing financial disparity between the Premier League and the rest of Europe, and to effectively replace UEFA, the organisation that allowed this gap to materialise, as the controlling force in European football. And let's have it right, the financial imbalance in European football is absolutely enormous right now. The 2023 Deloitte Money League showed that of the top 20 clubs bringing in the most revenue, 11 were Premier League sides. Unsurprisingly, every member of the traditional top 6 were amongst the top 10, whilst West Ham, Leicester City, Leeds, Everton and Newcastle were in the top 20. With a further 5 Premier League sides ranked between 21st and 30th, and Southampton, who have consistently battled relegation for the majority of the last 5 years, bringing in just €1 million less in revenue than Villarreal, who reached the Champions League semi-finals in 21-22, it's understandable why clubs outside the Premier League would want to take action. What is also worth stressing is that the main protagonists behind the European Super League, namely Barcelona, Juventus and Real Madrid, aren't in a great financial position, with their finances down €203 million, €51 million and €43 million respectively on 2018-19 pre-pandemic levels. The January transfer window further illuminated the problem. Premier League clubs spent £815 million in the winter window, taking their total spending to £2.8 billion this season, smashing the previous record of £1.9 billion set in 2017-18. Given that the rest of Europe's top 5 leagues spent just £225 million, less than Chelsea's winter outlay, and relegation-threatened Bournemouth almost signed Roma's Nicolo Zaniolo, reportedly outbidding Serie A holders Milan, it's clear that it's far from an even playing field. A22's launch statement made clear that they view the current landscape as a major concern. They said that they have held preliminary talks with nearly 50 European clubs and stakeholders, and that the vast majority of them share the assessment that the very foundation of European football is under threat, and it's time for change. He added that these stakeholders have found it impossible to create change within the current system, one which uses the threat of sanctions to thwart opposition. They promised a European Football League that is open, based solely on sporting merit, multi-divisional with 60 to 80 clubs, and a minimum of 14 guaranteed European matches per club. But what does this mean in reality? A22's 10-part proposal is filled with fairly vague, bland ideas that are very difficult to argue with, such as the fact that player health will be at the centre of the game, they will try and improve fan experience, and they will develop and finance women's football, without any real detail of how they will actually achieve these goals. But at its very centre is a multi-division competition involving 60 to 80 clubs, operating completely outside UEFA's control, a huge change from the original 20-team Super League with 15 permanent members that they proposed in 2021. As in 2021, this new competition would take place midweek, with a guarantee of at least 14 matches per season, with Reinhart saying that this will provide stability and predictability of revenue. A22 have attempted to answer the critics who have labelled the Super League's backers as self-interested and purely motivated by financial greed, by promising a minimum of €400 million per year to non-participating clubs, social causes and investments in grassroots. Whilst improving the finances of other European countries' football clubs, filtering more money down to the grassroots and developing the women's game are all honourable ideas, the reaction to the Super League version 2, whilst not as vociferous as in 2021, has been far from positive. So, the crucial stipulation is that whilst the Super League's backers might want their new competition to work alongside the current domestic league structure, that doesn't mean the feeling is reciprocated. Javier Tebas, one of the most vocal critics of the Super League over the last few years, was quick to denounce it, immediately tweeting a cartoon likening the backers to the wolf from Little Red Riding Hood, along with a caption, "The Super League is the wolf, who today disguises himself as a granny to try and fool European football," before adding, "But his nose and his teeth are the very big 4 divisions of Europe. Of course, the first for them, as in the 2019 reform. Governed by the clubs, of course, only the big clubs." The Premier League didn't comment but have previously condemned any proposal that attacks the principles of open competition and sporting merit, which are the heart of the domestic and European football pyramid. Whilst England's top division might not have responded, the Football Supporters Association, who represent fans in England and Wales, were quick to condemn it. Chief Executive Kevin Miles said, "The walking corpse that is the European Super League twitches again with all the self-awareness one associates with the zombie." Before continuing, their newest idea is to have an open competition rather than the closed shop they originally proposed. Of course, an open competition for Europe's top clubs already exists. It's called the Champions League. That's a crucial point. The European Super League doesn't directly threaten the strength of the Premier League. It hopes to replace the Champions League with a competition that puts them on an even keel with English clubs. Unlike in 2021, when English club owners went behind the backs of their shareholders, managers, players and everyone connected to their sides to collude with the European Super League, this time there has been absolutely no interest from Premier League sides, failing to even discuss it at a recent shareholders meeting. Sky Sports' Kaveh Solokol was damning in his assessment, saying that the chances of it happening are somewhere between slim and none, because Premier League clubs cannot join it. The Premier League handbook has the owners' charter, which is something that all the owners of the Premier League clubs have had to sign. In that charter, point 9 says, "We are collectively committed to the Premier League and recognise our responsibility to support it. We will not engage in the creation of new competition formats outside the Premier League's rules." He also added this on Sky.
"This is a PR strategy. This is just going back over what they did 18 months ago. Real Madrid, Barcelona and Juventus trying to do it again with better PR and also an element supposedly of promotion and relegation."
His reaction came before the announcement on the 23rd of February that the UK government's new independent regulator would block English clubs from joining a European Super League. With the fans, clubs and now the UK government against it, it's painfully obvious that Premier League sides will not be joining this breakaway competition, and it will struggle to get off the ground, let alone succeed. In a purely hypothetical scenario though where it did, would it actually work? ESPN's Gabriel Marcotti certainly doesn't think so. A minimum of 14 European matches per season is one more than Champions League winners Real Madrid played last season on the way to lifting the trophy. Before you even get into how this would work, think about players' health. The new proposals would have 100% of players playing 14 games, compared to 50% playing 6 at current, and that doesn't even include the knockouts. What's more, Marcotti points out that once you exclude international dates, there are only 13 midweeks available between mid-August and mid-December. And even if there was space in the calendar, this sounds like a long, laborious competition, with the regularity of matches taking away from what makes European football special, the fact that these glamour ties don't happen very often. He also questions A22's statement that their guarantee of a minimum of €400 million per year will go to non-participating clubs, social causes and investments in grassroots, adding that that is more than 2 times the contribution from existing club competitions. The only issue is that this isn't true. Yes, the current system sees £140 million put aside for non-participating clubs, but another €105 million goes to clubs that get knocked out in the qualifiers, and 6.5% of net revenue is retained by UEFA and reserved for European football, going towards grassroots schemes and development projects. Add in another €10 million that they use to fund the Women's Champions League, and that's already at €445 million. Factor in that these payments go to 96 clubs that participate in Europe's 3 continental competitions, rather than the 60 to 80 proposed, and the prize money goes to more clubs in more countries. Whilst clubs around Europe might be envious of the Premier League's riches, the impact of that financial advantage in European competitions hasn't been as obvious yet. Yes, there has been an English representative in 4 of the last 5 finals, after going 5 years without one, but the only English winners have come from all Premier League affairs in 2019 and 2021. This season, no English side won the opening leg of their last 16 ties, with Liverpool humiliated 5-2 at Anfield by Real Madrid, their heaviest defeat in European competition since 1966. Whilst the Champions League is far from perfect, it's provided some unforgettable moments over the last few seasons. Real Madrid defying the odds time and again last season, Liverpool overturning a 3-goal deficit to defeat Barcelona in 2019, and Lucas Moura's 96th minute winner to knock out Ajax in the same season, to name but 3. Supporters of the European Super League will argue that UEFA's Champions League reforms are no different, with UEFA initially planning to give 2 additional places to teams based on their past European performance. However, crucially, those plans have now been abandoned. The additional 4 places that they are introducing from 2024-25 have instead been divided as follows. 2 will be awarded on the performance of a country's clubs in Europe the previous season, 1 will go to the 3rd place league team in a country ranked 5th in UEFA's coefficient rankings, and another would go to a domestic champion that doesn't qualify automatically. Crucially, these changes have been endorsed by the European Club Association, which represents more than 240 clubs. something that the European Super League unsurprisingly hasn't got. So guys, that was our explained on whether the new Super League would actually work. What did you guys think of it? Let me know in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to Football Daily for more great daily content, and I'll catch you next time.